Well, we've all seen how, should we say, much trouble Boris Johnson is in at the moment. Indeed, this morning I did a video just on how much trouble he is in. Potentially, with apparently, we may have reached the magic number. I suppose we will probably find out in due course whether that was right or not. But as I said at the time, especially with that doing that video, take that very much with a pinch of salt over what might happen. But of course, one of the things that was brought up in that particular video was the reintroduction or the throwing out of imperial weights and measurements. But as a lot of people said, that's a tiny, tiny percentage, a really tiny percentage of actual people that want that. I've never met anyone who actually genuinely wants to bring back imperial weights and measurements. It is kind of stupid. And as we've said before, this wasn't an EU thing. This was a thing the UK government did with the whole metrification bill that it brought in. You know, this wasn't, quote, forced upon us. It was merely something that was thrown out, essentially, from what we can tell, by Johnson trying to get his right-wing MPs back on side and at least shore up support on that front. But, of course, what does it actually mean to bring back imperial weights and measurements? Because I've seen a lot of videos saying how ridiculous it is and as to quote the last article we went over, what Muppet came up with this idea. But what does it actually mean to reintroduce these? And what does it actually mean for the food industry as a whole? So we're going to tackle that subject today. And of course, to do that, we're going to go over to The Grocer, again, an industry magazine. So it'll be fantastic to see what they've got to say about this, because I've kind of pre-read it. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to say the least. So as always, please do remember to hit that like, share, and of course the subscribe button if you are new as well, to get more videos and stuff to the channel. And of course, if you would like to support the channel a different way, there are links to my Patreon page and a donation link down below as well, to buy me a coffee when you want buy me a coffee. And of course, there is the YouTube subscription system as well. So over to The Grocer then to have a look at this, because I think this is I haven't seen anyone come at this from this way. So it'll be interesting to tell you more about how this is going to be a problem for the food industry. So, like I say, over to The Grocer with the title of Reinstating Imperial Measurements Opens Up a Hornet's Nest of Problems for the Food Industry. So already, as you can tell, this ain't going to be good. Back to the future. Apart from a few market traders and greengrocers, it's not clear many in the food industry will welcome the government move to reinstate imperial weights and measures as some kind of tribute to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Quite apart from that fact that anyone under 50 will only ever have been educated in the metric system. There will be some obvious trading standards issues about conversion and consistency, not least in terms of price displays, let alone the calibration of different sets of scales for reinvented traditionalists wanting to ditch the electronic versions and revert to the old-fashioned mechanical devices. If this were to be extended to pre-packaged goods, it would open up a whole new hornet's nest of dual labeling and portion sizes, not to mention nutritional and other information currently expressed in units per gram of weight. The term calorie in itself is defined as the amount of heat needed to raise the temperature of 1 kilogram of water by 1 degree Celsius, which all sounds pretty metric to me. So as you can see, if this does, depending on how far this actually goes, this could have huge complications. I mean, the fact of like dual labeling and stuff like that is going to add huge costs to to food producers at this time, which eventually that cost is going to get passed on to the consumer. And at a time where we're already in a cost of living crisis, it doesn't look good. So, and if we are to return to pints in crown stamped glasses for beer, why not gallons for petrol? allowing a pick and mix approach to suit particular products and personal preferences. And that may be someone's idea of restoring ancient liberties, but it's also a recipe for chaos and potential exploitation. Think shrinkflation, not to mention the need to reprint receipt books themselves. Again, if you've ever sort of seen the inner workings of like a food department store or stuff like that, they have these massive books of this is what stuff costs and this is, it's like, yeah, those are about to get a whole lot bigger. And of course, on a more serious side, has already emerged in the form of genetic technology, the Precision Breeding Bill, introduced into Parliament just last week. Let's just hope that the scientists agree on which measurement system they are using. Unlike NASA's Mars Climate Orbiter disaster in 1999, which caused confusion between the pound sections and the Newton sections in calculating acceleration data. Meanwhile, long queues at borders, threats of national rail strikes, and the prospect of power cuts this winter are perhaps less intrinsically throwbacks to yesteryear. This past is indeed a foreign country where they do things differently. I'm not sure everyone wants to go back to it. Yeah, interesting to say the least. But this is like the national. I think that the Gross is like a national newspaper for the industry of the food industry. So it is very, very clear the food industry is like, why are you doing this? This is going to cause huge problems. As was mentioned there, the NASA probe problem back in 1999, where you had the pounds and the metric system and the imperial measurements, varying against each other. The problems with, because again, the weights are different. Just because you have got 1 kilogram and 1 pound, they are not the same measurements. And as I said, I'm under 50. I've never been taught how to measure in this. I grew up in the metric system. I don't remember this. And we're what? Bar us, 3 other countries use the imperial measurement still, where everyone else uses the metric system. Why are we going back to this? Well, Boris, the reason is Boris is in trouble and he is desperately trying to shore up support from his right-wing MPs. And indeed, going all the way back, you can almost track the rise in Euroscepticism going back to something called the metric martyrs, of people or market stall owners who basically, they knew this in advance, long in advance, over a year, with the councils telling them this is what you need to do. You need to display both the price in your imperial measurements, but also in the metric as well. That's all they had to do. And yet that became a national news story. And as many people have pointed out, may have been the start of the rise of Euroscepticism at that time and point. But is this going to sort of correct the quote metric martyrs? Are they suddenly going to be freed and pardoned? No. They were basically idiots who refused to change with the times. Unfortunately, this whole thing, it's really not the crowd pleaser I think Johnson at least expects. It's only really going to warm the cockles of a few very, very conservative Tory MPs. So with that said, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button on your way out, and let me know what you think to the bringing back of imperial measurements down below. Have you ever actually had to buy anything in imperial measurements? It'd be very interesting to know what your experience of that was, because I've never bought anything in imperial measurements. So I suppose we'll find out soon what that's like. As always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.